Hello, and you are very welcome to this review of The Ghost Monument. Tune in to find out what happens next. The Ghost Monument brought with it many surprises, and yet many unanswered questions. For starters, who is the timeless child? And where are the Doctor and her friends placed on this planet in a race against time? Well, for starters, the timeless child could be referring to the fact that Captain Jack might make a return. It was previously stated that, or ruled out significantly, I think, over the last couple of months, that Captain Jack will not return to the series as part of kind of a hush-hush movement towards maybe seeing him again as a companion to the Doctor. And how we know this is fairly clear, actually, because at the end of series 4, or was it series 3 or 4, we know that Captain Jack is the face of Bo. We also know that he is immortal in a sense that he never dies. So there is a possibility that he could come back and reprise his role as Captain Jack Harkness in Doctor Who. So that is what my suggestion is, or would be hinting towards, is that Captain Jack Harkness is the timeless child in this episode, or is at least a reference to the timeless child. Moving on to the character development in this episode. This episode was more of a character developmental story rather than last week's episode where we saw the introduction of the Doctor and her 4 companions, or 3 as it is now known as. There was no real kind of story to it per se. It was all very kind of, well, this is this story, this is what we're going to do, we're going to learn a lot more about the characters than we had last week. And it was all very kind of based off an idea that this story was purely going to be based on character development, what the characters are like in a certain environment, their interactions with a different alien planet for the first time, and what happens next. So that was the character development. I feel, again, Bradley Walsh seems to be getting all the classic one-liners and a lot more of a say in it than the other companions, simply because maybe there's a favoritism towards him, or something like that. But, you know, if you're going to give someone who is probably better well off known within the TV industry a shot at being in what is now known as one of the longest running TV series of all time on the BBC, why not divide those lines between the different characters that you have on screen? It just seems to me being very unfair in that there are certain elements of this episode that I felt some characters are slightly weaker in than last week, others not so much. But that is for a different video. So that is character development. Moving swiftly on to the villain in this episode. There was no real kind of threat to the Doctor and her friends until maybe halfway through the episode. Now, these weren't really a threat as per se, they were more of a warning type they were more maybe subtle type ideas towards the villain. It was more of a wavy cloth spinning around in the air. Once they go out at night time, they trap the air in them and they kill them. Uh, but that wasn't really. That was one of the possibly going off what I said previously. It was probably one of the weakest points of the episode. Simply in terms of the villain wasn't strong enough. There was no villain in the episode as per se, but the storyline itself was very good. It was very good creatively, very good linguistically in terms of the language used throughout the episode, and just gave a real kind of refresher to this episode and of course maybe the series. So moving forward swiftly to what is now known as the Ghost Monument. We know that the Ghost Monument, as mentioned previously in the episode, was something that they didn't know of until the race adjudicator, I can't remember the name of his character, but he pulled up a holographic screen of what it was, and then it came to the quick realization of the Doctor that it was this box. Now, this box could be anything. It could be a sandbox, it could be, I don't know, a K9 or something like that. But whatever this mysterious box might be, or depending on what way you interpret it, it'd be still nice to see this thing materialize in the background, which we now know, of course, is called, which we now know is the TARDIS, referred to in this episode as the Ghost Monument. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But first, I'd like to address a few issues that I had with the episode with regards to how the reveal of the TARDIS was shown to viewers on the screen. Usually with TARDIS reveals, you'd have the companion be kind of in awe of the design, and then following on from the companion's reaction, you'd have how it came about, what's the Doctor's story, and all that kind of stuff. And he or she would ask, what do you think of it? How do you like the design? Is there improvements to be made in some areas? But the way this was handled, I think, was quite creatively done. There was a creative aspect to how it was done. It was done down to specifics in relation to how, I don't know, the TARDIS itself just felt very claustrophobic in a sense, because one way I know the TARDIS is now a homage to the 8th and 12th Doctor. I think that's the vibes that I was getting from it anyway, with the cog-like wall representing clockwork as seen in the 12th Doctor titles throughout his run, and then the crystal type formations around the console area, which kind of, I think, represent a bit of David Tennant and Paul McGann era in that respect, which I am grateful for, obviously, but I do think the TARDIS reveal could have shown us a little bit more about the TARDIS. Instead of showing us their initial reactions, why not show us a wide shot of what the console actually looks like? That is my only criticism of the TARDIS reveal. However, in tonight's episode entitled Rosa, I do think we will get a more detailed and in-depth look at the interior of the TARDIS, which I hope we do, because last week I felt this isn't doing it for me. So, out of 5, or will we go 10? No, I think we'll go 5. Out of 5, what do I give this episode? The cinematics were brilliant throughout the episode. I haven't realised this. It was only as I was watching the episode and possibly didn't really notice it in the last one, that the screen has kind of shrunk to fit kind of a cinema aspect. Done, I think, not in the format that we're used to, the 16:9. I think it's done in the 9:3 format or something, where there are slight black bars on either end of the screen, and they've compressed to give that kind of cinema feel to the episode, which I like. I only noticed it there as I was watching the episode, but that's a plus. It's certainly different to what I'm used to watching. Doctor Who in the normal aspect ratio, which is 16:9, so that's a change. So that I have a positive for that. The way the characters were portrayed in this episode were there was definitely some sort of character development, if not in all characters. There was in about 3 or 4 of them. Although I do think character development in this episode was slightly weaker than last week. Not as weaker as last week, but weaker in the sense that a lot of characters kind of got pushed to one side, really. So, and of course, the villains in this episode kind of didn't really have any fear. It was really, you step outside in the darkness and you get eaten alive by these cloth-faced monsters. Now, one thing that kind of confused me a little bit was they stepped out in the darkness, it was still dark, and the cloth monsters didn't really do anything. Or I think I think they're known as the remnants. Yeah, they kind of wrapped themselves around the characters, and that was it. And then a cigar was lit in the air, and they all exploded. So really, there was no plot resolution there. It wasn't really a plot as per se. It was more of an exploration, I think. So that was fine. The TARDIS reveal I'm not really a big fan of, in the sense that it didn't really give me a look at the TARDIS as I'm used to. Maybe it might possibly do that in episode 3, which is airing this evening at 5 to 7, again the same time as last week, on BBC One. But yeah, I think in terms of TARDIS reveals, I think that needs to be stepped up a little bit, in terms of what we actually get to see, because really all I saw last week was the walls of the TARDIS, and then kind of a zoomed in one camera shot of the Doctor's face looking amazed and bewildered at the TARDIS. And then that thing with the custard cream dispenser, I don't even know where to go with that, because I don't even know what that's a reference to. So if any of you know what that is a reference to, please do let me know down in the comments below. So in total, I'd give this maybe 3.5 to 4 out of 5, if I was being honest about it, based on what I've said previously and what I said just there at the moment. Yeah, that is my episode 2 review of the Ghost Monument completed. Join me this evening as I review not the Ghost Monument, the Rosa episode 3 of series 11, where Doctor Who kind of tackled a discriminatory issue in this week's episode. So tune in this evening to find out what I thought of it. I was supposed to release a preview of episode 2 last week, before it came out. Unfortunately, I have not, so look out for a preview video of episode 3 coming out this evening at 5 to 7 on BBC One. But until then, thank you very much for watching my review, and I'll see you this evening for both a preview video of tonight's episode and the review straight after the episode airs. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you this evening. For more Doctor Who reviews, click up in the info card, and of course Doctor Who videos in general will be there as well. Reviews and news on Doctor Who will also be there. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you this evening.